Elon Musk is rich. Not millionaire rich, but like nation-level rich. With a fortune rivaling the GDP of small countries, he is the wealthiest man on the planet, and his money only keeps growing. But what happens if that growth never stops? On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're exploring the terrifying possibility of Elon Musk becoming the world's first trillionaire. Toddler in a grown man's body, Elon Musk was recently dubbed the most hated man in America by Futurism after a Gallup poll showed horrific approval ratings. But despite this, you can't deny he's attached to a staggering list of headline-grabbing companies, from Tesla and SpaceX to Neuralink, The Boring Company, X, and even the Musk Foundation. That involvement has earned him a fortune of $381 to $425 billion, depending on whether his latest tweet has tanked his stock value. No matter how you slice it, he is the richest man in the world, but could he really hit $1 trillion? Let's pump the brakes on this crazy Cybertruck for a second and really think about how much that is. $1 trillion. That is more than double Elon's current net worth and about 1/7 of the entire US budget in 2024. Even for Elon Musk, doubling your money on that scale takes more than a lucky windfall. To get an idea of what an uphill battle this would be, let's take a look at Elon's current trajectory. According to CoinIndex, earlier in 2025, Elon makes around $96.1 million. That is more than you will ever realistically see in 100 lifetimes in a single day. In a week, he makes $672.8 million, almost enough to give every single person in the US $2 each. Every month, Elon Musk rakes in $2.93 billion. That's more than the total box office of Avengers Endgame and even edges out James Cameron's Avatar. Over a year, that climbs to $35.1 billion, about the entire economy of Zimbabwe, all for one guy. But even then, with all of this obscene wealth, getting the coveted 12 zeros of the trillionaire will be extremely hard. Let's say he's got around $400 billion to his total net worth. That leaves him with $600 billion to become a trillionaire. Let's say he doesn't lose a cent of the money he has, and his yearly income doesn't get any lower. It would still take him over 17 years to actually reach that goal. In late 2024, Donald Trump won the US presidential election, backed by around $277 million of Musk's money. With a presidential blessing, it seemed like Musk was practically sitting on a magic carpet straight to trillionaire status. Informa Connect Academy, a wealth tracking organization, estimated that he might be able to attain trillionaire status as early as 2027, with an average annual wealth growth rate of 110%. Of course, people have been predicting trillionaires for years. Some even said the first would appear by 2024. That didn't happen, so these forecasts might be about as reliable as Musk's promise that 90% of miles would be autonomous by 2016, or that we would have humanoid robots folding our laundry right now. Still, Elon's favorability with the new president and his appointment to lead the so-called Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE, seemed like a surefire way to guarantee massive wealth growth. The grand majority of Elon's billions is all tied up in the stock market rather than as liquid cash in some Fort Knox-style vault. So the stocks of his companies took a notable boost, with SpaceX propped up by government contracts and Tesla boosted by renewable energy incentives. A friendly administration has always meant a richer Elon. But Musk soon got a very harsh lesson on the tendency of good things to not last. His social media platform X, formerly Twitter, has acted as a kind of expensive albatross around the billionaire's neck. The lax moderation on the site gave it an uphill battle in courting advertisers, the lifeblood of any social media revenue stream. Tesla, arguably the company that made Elon the household name he is today, also saw some major challenges heading into 2025. The much-hyped Cybertruck flopped, dragging down both Tesla's sales and its stock price. It missed Elon's own performance targets by a crushing 84%. His impulsive foray into politics didn't much help the company's futuristic, eco-friendly brand identity either. Nationwide protests at Tesla stores and a surge of owners selling off their cars piled even more pressure onto the already embattled company. But all of Elon's misfortune came to a head in June 2025 when the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, yes, it was really called that, was making its way through Congress. Elon was one of the bill's most vocal critics, mainly because it eliminated the tax credit for electric vehicle production, one of the pillars holding up Tesla in the automotive industry. And by extension, that affected Elon's personal fortune. Elon's attacks on the bill over X soured relations with the administration. Things only got worse when the Federal Aviation Administration blocked Starlink from national air traffic control. To add insult to injury, his pick for NASA Administrator, Jared Isaacman, was rejected. Given that the grand majority of SpaceX contracts are with the government via NASA, this probably meant missing out on a whole bunch of lucrative business opportunities. When the bill passed, Elon left Doge, but by then he'd made powerful political enemies and dragged both his name and several of his companies through the mud. Hardly the best position to be in. All of this is just to say Musk's path to trillionaire status now looks far tougher than it did back in the rosy days of late 2024. Still, difficult doesn't mean impossible, as Elon has proven many times before. After all, people laughed at the idea of a Tesla diner serving something called epic bacon. But he made it happen, at least for a few weeks before it disappeared from the menu. In the same way, if Musk can turn that bizarre dream into a reality, maybe he can also find a way to bring home an extra $600 billion. Of course, there is Tesla, Elon's most valuable company despite some of the recent self-inflicted setbacks. If Elon's next car proves less of a lemon than the Cybertruck, he might win back some of his once adoring investors. Tesla, however, has long been considered one of the market's most overvalued stocks, treated more like a tech company than a traditional automaker. If Musk's robo-taxis ever learn to not plow through children or old folks, he might be in for a truly incredible payday. However, with Tesla starting to get left behind in the electric car market, SpaceX might be Elon's golden goose. If countries across the globe start adopting Starlink satellites for their internet needs, that's likely to be an incredible avenue of wealth creation, providing Vladimir Putin doesn't tell him to take them all offline. And if the US ever does seriously start considering Mars colonization, it's Elon who would be near the top of the pile for the contractors that they would call. And of course, there is Neuralink. Its current applications are limited, but if the company masters actual brain-computer interfaces, it could be at the forefront of a new technological gold rush. Or at least they might be. Elon's ex-friend and current business nemesis, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, has created a competitor company called MindMerge. And if they manage to get to the goal of brain-computer interface first, then Elon will need to find another way to make that $600 billion that he'll need to get the much-coveted title. Though there is one little buzzword we just glossed over that we think would be remiss not to mention: artificial intelligence. Yes, we know everyone is sick of hearing about it, but it matters here. In the overcrowded AI market, Elon has xAI, home to his Frankenstein's monster Grok. This chatbot swings from calling itself Mecha Hitler to roasting its own creator. There's also Annie, the goth anime girl chatbot that premium Grok users can sext with. If society collapses into some kind of Gooner revolution, possibly fueled by AI-driven pollution, millions might turn to Annie as their substitute for human contact. And if that happens, Elon could walk away with a few $100 billion more. But tech alone isn't the only way Elon could inflate his fortune into trillionaire territory. There is another tactic that he loves, one the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, has accused him of more than once: market manipulation. We hinted at it earlier. Elon has a long history of hyping up wild promises right before key investor moments to juice stock prices, from robo-taxis and humanoid robots to his infamous announcement that Tesla would be taken public at $420. You know why. He's really not that deep. But it's not just the stocks of his own company. Elon Musk was one of the earliest adopters of cryptocurrency, particularly Dogecoin, which became the meme namesake of his government committee. Elon's actions and sentiments have been closely tied to notoriously volatile crypto prices, like when his appearance on Saturday Night Live tanked a huge number of people's crypto portfolios. It's a tether that people in the finance world call the Musk effect. It's not outside the realm of imagination to think that Elon might increase his investments in various cryptocurrencies. Then he could use his mastery of the Musk effect to balloon the value of his various magic rainforest-destroying internet coins. Or maybe Elon could make his first trillion in a way that you would never expect. That's the thing about success in business. You never know when some global paradigm shift will suddenly make a small business rocket into the stratosphere. Take Zoom, for example, once seen as an obscure competitor to the other video chat services like Skype. However, the COVID-19 pandemic locking down the world in 2020 changed things forever, creating a massive market for Zoom that shot the company's value to the stratosphere. And with Elon Musk, perhaps the same could be said of a movie-style zombie apocalypse. Back in 2018, Elon posted a video of himself on what was then Twitter, firing off a handheld flamethrower before chasing the cameraman with it. The caption on the video read, "When the zombie apocalypse happens, you'll be glad you bought a flamethrower. Works against hordes of the undead or your money back." This was how he announced that he was selling these flamethrowers through his drilling business, The Boring Company, for $500 a piece, which made around $5 million in the few days that followed. While it's easy to laugh or sneer at this as another piece of Elon's classic 2010s lol so random core humor, what if a zombie apocalypse really did happen? What if the billions of teeming dead rose up from their graves and started to devour the flesh and brains of the living? And if bullets failed and only fire worked, there would be no product in the world more coveted than the Boring Company flamethrower. While the Boring Company is currently private, the money from flamethrowers flying off the shelves would give Elon the capital to take the company public and collect those delicious dividends. Well, if there's anyone left unzombified on Wall Street to ink the deal anyway. But that's enough fantasizing about how the world's richest man could somehow become the world's richerest man. Let's talk about the aftermath, the true juicy part. If given the largest amount of personal wealth that any human has ever had in history, how would Elon remake the planet in his image? Based on his track record, one thing is certain. Elon will keep snapping up companies just to settle grudges. Elon's most infamous buy was Twitter in 2022, later rebranded as X for, well, reasons we won't unpack here. But two of the companies that prop up his wealth, Tesla and SpaceX, weren't his creations. They were existing companies that he bought into before claiming the spotlight. And with $1 trillion to play with, a lot of businesses out there would probably be getting an Elon-style makeover. While Elon would probably need to pry Facebook and Instagram from Zuckerberg's cold, dead hands, or at least face him in an actual MMA match, there are plenty of others he could go after. TikTok, for example, is estimated to be worth around $100 billion based on the algorithm. Without it, you're talking around $30 to $40 billion. Chump change for the first trillionaire. He'd likely change its name to X-Talk and then adjust the powerful algorithm to ensure that his own videos made it to everybody's feeds. YouTube would be a much harder purchase, valued by some at around $550 billion. That means buying YouTube would basically bring Elon's trillionaire net worth back to where he is now. But maybe he would think it's worth it just to rename it to XTube and then nuke this video from existence. He could probably get a sweet deal on Tumblr though. That's valued at less than $1 billion these days. Just don't mention that to Yahoo, it's a sore subject. But buying up social media websites and forcing X into the name isn't even one of Elon's primary passions. No, if he somehow managed to obtain over $1 trillion, he'd probably throw plenty of that money behind his passion for natalism. He's been obsessed with falling birth rates in Western nations for years, and he has currently been doing his own part to fight back against the trend, fathering at least 14 children with various mothers. Elon's fixation on repopulating the Earth could easily extend to paying women en masse to have his kids, whether he calls it saving humanity or just indulging his breeding kink. Either way, expect swarms of musklings, and maybe with $1 trillion, he'd begin to pay child support. But if he gets freaked out by the whole mother part of it, he might start working on revolutionizing cloning techniques to make perfect doubles of himself. And hey, if he gets the Neuralink chips working, he might be able to use them all as vessels for digital copies of his consciousness, so he can bother us forever. Okay, let's move on to politics. In his final days at Doge, as tensions with the administration grew, Elon threatened to create his own third party, the America Party. Meant to rival both Democrats and Republicans, most people just called it a terrible idea. Politically, it leaned right, which would mostly serve to split the Republican vote. With America's entrenched political system and the billions already flooding campaigns, launching a viable third party is nearly impossible. Unless, of course, you're a man bent on revenge with $1 trillion to burn. Musk could tactically fund primaries and general elections around the country, throwing a grenade into the political landscape. Would the America Party get much legislation passed? Probably not, but they would certainly get everybody's attention, and for Elon, that is the biggest win of all. Though, of course, even that pales in comparison to Elon's greatest ambition, something he loves even more than influencing US elections and impregnating women half his age: human colonization on Mars. But the question is, would $1 trillion make it possible? The answer is, sadly for Elon, no, not by a long shot. According to projections from NASA, the cost of just getting people to Mars would be around $500 billion, so slightly less expensive than buying YouTube. And the cost of building a self-sustaining colony would be scores more than that. According to one experienced space investor, the cost could go as high as $10 trillion. Sure, you might say that that person is a cynic who just doesn't believe in Musk's vision. Well, that person actually was the 2019 version of Elon Musk. Of course, Elon could try to do what he thinks he does best and downsize. Try to do this thing on the cheap, and then get the rest of the money later. But would you be eager to play astronaut on Elon Musk's United Airlines Mars trip? Probably not, unless you've always dreamed of being the first person to die on Mars. With all these potential uses for Elon's new $1 trillion, you might find yourself wondering, what kind of legacy would the ultra rich Elon leave behind? Honestly, probably not a great one. History has shown us one thing: the richer Elon Musk gets, the more he demands to be the star of the show. And that is exactly why people across the spectrum find him weird and annoying. Would even more money and power change him? Or at least change him for the better? The legacy of a trillionaire Elon might just be a pile of expensive broken toys. On the optimistic end, ruined social media sites overrun with spam and extremists, cars that are a 10-year-old's idea of cool, and a bloated, embarrassing political party. On the darker end, he might be the cause of the first collection of human corpses on Mars, and environmental ruin here on Earth. In the end, it doesn't matter if he's a billionaire or a trillionaire. Elon's immaturity and ego will always stop him from being a true force for good. His endless hunger for admiration drives him into dark paths because it's easier to spend billions on dead-end projects than face the terrible truth. Even the richest man on Earth can't pay people to like him. So how do you keep a potential trillionaire safe? Find out in How Protected is Elon Musk, or click on this video instead.